Good morning, everyone. How are y'all doing today? Thank you for being here and enjoy the first day of Coverings. I'm Alena Capra, Coverings Industry Ambassador and also the owner of Alena Capra Designs in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So this morning, the panelists and I are so thrilled to present these global tile trends and celebrate this amazing versatile material. So just a quick few housekeeping notes. Make sure your phones are on silent, and don't forget, please get your badge scanned so you could receive certificate of attendance for the session. So now I'm going to introduce our first panelist, Roxanne Morris. Roxanne is the Marketing and Media Relations Manager for Tile Council of North America and Tile. And Roxanne writes about the product development, standards, and design trends for various trade publications, and is also editor at ytile.com and manages the YTile Partner Network. Roxanne.
All right, thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Alena. I'm Roxanne, as she said, with Tile Council, and I, for the last 10 years, have had the pleasure of following tile trends coming out of North America. And so right now, I'm going to highlight some of the macro trends that have been overarching in design that have been affecting tile designs that you're going to see on the floor. The through line with these trends that I'm going to cover, you'll notice, is that they're trends geared toward giving you an experience. People are really hungry for like visceral connected experiences in every part of their life. So products are being made more immersive and designed to give you an experience that you'll want to come back to. A lot of things you'll notice, like a popular thing you'll see on all types of products is like rubber coating. So even if like you have a jar of something, it doesn't matter what's inside, just the experience of picking it up and applying it, whatever it is enjoyable on its own. So it's something you'll want to repeat. Okay, I gotta see.
Big green button.
There we go. Okay, so one of the places that we see this obviously today is in the workspaces. So workspaces, instead of being, utilitarian and drab, they're being designed as like a compelling destination, making it less of an obligation and more of something that is worth the commute to a worker that values their time. They'll often have more of like a communal clubhouse feeling than like a office space vibe. The picture shown here is a sports arena. This is another example where this the whole place is designed with your experience in mind. So it's more of a mixed-use lifestyle district. The trend with arenas like this for years has been moving away from a single-use, like game day venue, to more of an all-encompassing entertainment district. This is similar to, and also often included in the like 20-minute cities that you hear about now, where everything that you need is just right within a 20-minute walk from you. You don't have to go far. Your whole experience is just all designed right around you. On a smaller, more personal scale, you can see this in the way that people style their personal spaces, their homes. Instead of loading up on generic decor items that, for instance, their neighbors might have too, they're leaning more into personal treasures that reflect their own story, like family heirlooms or like global souvenirs, things that just make the whole space around them a story-rich tapestry of their own experience. And while we're on this photo, another more specific example of this focus on creating an experience is well illustrated here, which is that big light trend, where if you're trying to create a more unique and inviting atmosphere, you might forego just like one big overhead light and instead go for like a bunch of small, usually unique sculptural lighting sources. Another personal scale trend that's well illustrated here is maximalism, which is kind of that pendulum swing away from like the minimalist Instagram aesthetic where we're trying to hide that anybody lives in a space. Now we're just really infusing them with identity and our own personalities. I want to do just a quick tangent on a couple color trends. If you were here for the last session, you got the really in-depth scoop on color trends from Leah Pantone, but we can just cover a couple highlights here that you'll see reflected maybe on the floor. So we've continued obviously to see things trending out of grays and into browns. This goes not only for hard surfaces, but fabrics, textiles, cabinetry, case goods, paper, everything. There's a New York Design Center survey that saw over 90% of their respondents predicted brown being the color of choice in 2024. And we are indeed seeing tons of like warm and chocolatey neutrals on the floor. This move from neutral interiors to like a energized use of bold and saturated colors just shows that people are really ready for like more character and more unique surroundings. They're also staying in their houses longer. So they're not decorating with resale in mind or being safe about it. Their color choices are just based on how they make them feel. Two of the leading color forecasters, Pantone and WGSN, agreed on these stone fruit shades, which was Peach Fuzz and Apricot Crush as their colors of the year. And they both were noting their restorative and nurturing natures. And this is reflective of a growing focus on holistic lifestyles, which we're going to kind of circle back to in a minute. Quiet luxury is another trend across fashion and interiors that has this idea that innovation and timeless elegance will result in spaces that inspire and elevate your everyday living. These interiors can feature sustainable materials, discreetly integrated smart technology, and revival of classic design elements that evoke nostalgia, but being in a modern way. Romanticism and coquette core is another one worth mentioning. They're both characterized by hyper-feminine flourishes, bows, lace, ruffles, really dreamy and whimsical elements. So in tile, that could take the shape of curves, scallops, fish scales, warm pastels, or any design that's kind of flowy, like that large format panel on the right there. Sorry about that. Optimized curation. There's a recent Reno study on house that showed that people spend twice as much time now in the planning stage as they do in implementation stage, which is not a surprise. Now that there's like endless inspiration at the tip of your fingers, a Google search away, people can just curate to no end and optimize every single facet of their space to fit their needs and their lifestyle. And what's more luxurious than that? Second kitchens are becoming a popular ask in luxury homes. So you can have a main kitchen for like entertaining and then a hidden, more back pantry kitchen for food prep. And this is to keep the mess concealed. It's definitely an aesthetic choice, but also it keeps in mind the experience you're having as well as your guests. It's also a good example of that quiet luxury, but in a big way. If space doesn't allow for something like that, like a second kitchen, people do this on a smaller scale with, for instance, like an appliance garage. You want to hide the messiness, make it a little, keep it a calmer feeling throughout the room. Another popular option is coffee and beverage stations. So this is kind of in the spirit of making your morning routine a ritual, something that you like to get up and do every morning. Same goes with the spa bathrooms, dedicating more space to that morning routine so it's not something you're rushing through. You're kind of enjoying it and making it a nice, calm start to your day. That type of curation, of course, will continue to the outdoors. Resort style is a trend that's not only having a moment in fashion. People are taking inspiration from their favorite destinations, places they've been, and recreating these moments of respite in their own spaces. This could be in the form of like mixed zone seating, arrangements that accommodate communal or like small groups. It could also be incorporating greenery into the structures to achieve like that personal oasis. This is really well illustrated on the floor in that outdoor oasis that I hope you get a chance to check out. If you do, you'll also see there's a fire feature that's a very popular feature to congregate around. Being non-combustible, ceramic and porcelain are especially well suited for applications like this since they won't burn, melt, they don't produce smoke or emit any fumes near high heat or flame. Taking a look at health and wellness trends, people are dedicating more space to wellness-focused rituals. Spaces made with wellness activity in mind can be steam rooms, plunge pools on the patio, home gyms, even if it's just like a corner of another room. All these are geared toward making a more holistic environment and giving you those easy wellness-focused rituals. Trends of transforming your homes into this like haven to alleviate the stresses of everyday life is a continuing but significant trend. Over the past 50 years, life expectancy around the world has increased by 10 years, and that should just keep getting higher over the future decades. And this trend toward like increased longevity will see a shift toward designing for age-inclusive communities, which gives demand for flexible and multi-generational communities that foster accessibility. This designing for wellness really goes hand in hand well with sustainability. Because people are planning to stay in their homes longer, they're opting to choose longer lasting materials, which bodes well for ceramic and porcelain. Across the board, the design industry is both driving and responding to this consumer demand for more sustainability and more transparency. You can see this in initiatives like consumer goods using less plastic in their packaging or advertising that we'll plant a tree with every purchase. These types of initiatives are just saying we're paying attention and we're doing our part. This sustainable design is becoming more of a non-negotiable as weather and climate continue to affect the built environment. It shifts more from an option to a responsibility. The building and real estate industries are more and more recognizing the value of environmentally conscious design because of its ability to mitigate risk. Higher standards for products and materials, adaptive reuse of existing buildings, net zero energy strategies, and regenerative design are all going to play parts in our sustainable future. And you'll hear a lot more about that if you are in the session that follows us, which is on green architecture and embodied carbon. You may have seen around the floor already, there's a lot of signs about a flooring sustainability summit that'll be held in July on Capitol Hill. That'll be an opportunity for dialogue across a broad group of people in flooring, building, A&D, sustainability, policymakers. And one of the main objectives for that summit is going to be to come to an alignment on embodied carbon. And with flooring being such a major component in building, this proactive cooperation is very important, and it's evident that so many of the manufacturers are prioritizing this based on the carbon-conscious collections that you'll see a lot of on the floor. So that's going to wrap up my look at macro trends. I hope you kind of keep your eyes peeled on the floor and see how those have kind of made their way into tile designs. And with that, I'll give it back to Alena and Cristina.
Next up, we'll have Cristina present. Give us just a moment and we'll get this up on the screen.
Okay, I'll start speaking anyway. So my name is Cristina Faedi. I'm talking on behalf of Ceramics of Italy. And my task today is to talk about tile trends, global tile trends. And at first glance, when we come to coverings, it seems like trends are similar to the previous year, but it's absolutely not like that. Our companies are investing a lot in terms of new technology to improve the material, both from the aesthetical point of view, but also from the technical point of view. We know that this is a necessity because the customers are more and more informed. They want to be granted for a safe and sound material, also because we are living in a climate change era, and they want to be sure about what they buy and what in the place where they live and they work. And so we are facing climate changes and weather conditions that are not, familiar to our latitude. So building material is important. And even if the tiles we know nowadays come in a wide range of shape and format and colors and patterns and thickness, they can be installed indoor, outdoor, and so they are really surprising. The innovation goes on and on. So technology is important, and that's why I titled my presentation Beyond Appearance, Beyond Expectation. So let's start our tour in the tiles and see what's behind also the production of tiles. So beyond realism, I think that one of the inspiration is nature, but I would rather say geology in a way, because there are a lot of stones. And ceramic has this, gives us the opportunity to create materials that in a way are even better of what we find in nature. For example, this is an Italian stone. It's called ceppo di Gre. It's very common in Italy, especially in the 60s, but its structure is not homogeneous. While thanks to 3 different kinds of technology, it has been compacted, it has been brush polished, and it's also anti-slip. So it can be installed indoor and outdoor, and it's very elegant. At the same time, also sedimentary rock can be, in ceramic, can be reproduced with the exact crumbling surfaces it is in nature. And we see also a revival of concrete. So cement, that is a rough material from industrial origin, we can say that we saw it in the brutalism architecture of the 50s. Now it becomes very soft on the surface and can be also installed indoor in a very elegant way. Slate have these natural shades on top and comes in all the range of color of the natural stone. And also the details are very accurate, like these inclusions or metal element, rusty element, and also the effect is like the one on the right is like lava, it's a hardened magma. And then we see also the return of this onyx. We see it in black, but I will show you later on also in other colors. So this veining that gives the transparency of the material. And Piacentina stone on the right that plays with these 2 shades on the same colors. But I think that the real innovation is this 3D technology, 3-dimensional. So it's not something that is just printed on the surface. it's something that goes into the body of the tile. So in the mass of the tile, we see these little tiny holes, these deep grooves, this depression that are typical of the real stone, but above all the stone that have been worn by the traffic of the time, and it goes inside the tile. So if you cut it, you find the same pattern also inside. And it's incredible because it can reproduce any kind of pattern of a natural stone, and it is also easy to clean, so it's very also convenient to install. Talking about size, this is a very common, you will see on the floor, as a shape. It's, we call it listello. It's like a rectangular shape, very narrow, and it reminds us of the shape of a brick. And it can come in a matte finish or super polished, like here. And it can be installed in a very different layout. For example, we see here what I call triple multiple, and it gives this kind of vibration on the wall. And going to small format, we can see this in flat. This is square, but it's like a woven, or three-dimensional in the shower on the left. Or other movement of the surfaces can be given by these little tiny lines that are in relief on big slab that reproduce this like cement slab that figure out is only 3.5 millimeter thick. So we can consider this like a second skin. And I would spend just a few words on wood, ceramic wood, because it's like a new frontier of this material. Thanks to the technology and the large format, we are far away from the boiserie, so it's something that can create a total look to the environment. So we have wood on the wall and on the floor, and the technology allows us to have a perfect matching with what we touch and what we see. So, of course, this kind of wood, ceramic wood, is fit to be installed also in a wet area, like, for example, swimming pool, and can be installed also outside, in outdoor spaces like terraces and patios. And the color are those of timber. For example, elm, oak, birch, and so you can create a lot of pattern, like a chevron one, or install it in line. Beyond luxury, I think that we need to bring light in our homes, and we are talking of ceramic wallpaper. So when we have these big slabs and so thin, we call them ceramic wallpaper. And this brightness is given by this floral element that are printed on top in gold, like those brush stroke on the left, or as a total look in gold in this wallpaper, there is also a silky touch because it reminds us of brocades. And the new stones are like quartzite, that is a volcano stone, or Calacata gold, that has, the name says, has hints of gold in the veining. So light is also brought to the tiles with this new material as an inspiration. So this pearl, mother of pearl, it's chalk, it's wax, it's also ice, for example. And thanks to the new technology, this is a full vein technology, we can have amazing colors of this exotic stone and marbles. So we have a lobster red touch, or a yellowish green, or dark green, or these waving burnt brown colors over here. And the veining become real pattern. We see it in vertical, in horizontal, and diagonal. So the environment changes completely according to the installation. And waves that can be combined with the other pattern, like in the picture on the left, or be inserted in this stroke in this blue quartzite on the right. And talking about light, in the smaller format, we find them with brass or verdigris, or oxidation, so metal effect that are in small pieces that reminds us of the craftsmanship of the origin of tile, of ceramics, or in bigger format, like in the shower on the right, and these amazing pieces of quartzite or geodesic that can create a real wow effect. Beyond the rainbow, of course, this title is just to talk about colors, and talking about nature. We can start from green. We were talking about green before, and green is a real inspiration. These kind of stones comes from I don't know, Portugal up to South America, and it reminds us of clear water. But they comes also in solid color that can be combined with this pattern. And I just put one, but there are so many representing leaves and flowers and branches. And green is a trend, from dark green to sage green to light green to mint green to light green of the onyx. Look at this, it's very transparent on the right, but it can be also installed like a boiserie on the left. And also in lively color, like this one, that are typical of Italian tradition, because it looks like handmade with this touch of paintbrush. And a reference also to the animal world, like in this peacock tail pattern. And the pastel color palette is a trend from light blue to light green, to light yellow, passing through purple and violet, and of course pink, in this veining and transparencies of onyx, but also in the matte finishing of the slab on the right, playing with different effects like glossy and matte, creating this floral pattern, or in tiny elements. So you will see a lot of this glossy tiles on the floor downstairs. And cotto. This is a revival. Of course, it's not the cotto that we had in the 80s. It's something that is very performative in its technical characteristic. The size is the one I was talking before, so like a listello, and it allows you to have different kind of installation layout. And it comes also, of course, in bigger shape and size, and with all these elements, like minerals elements that come on the surface, and is perfect for ancient villas or old architecture, as well as the most contemporary ones. And beyond decoration, we can't forget that tile is born as a decoration pixel. We can say it's a modularity. And we see the return of this hexagon. Also, the layout you see on the left is very, very traditional. It's one of, I don't know if it's also the same in Spain, but in Italy, it's very common to see old apartment with this kind of layout, with the flower. Layout in solid color, but also, as you can see on the right, the pattern comes also on the surface of the tile itself. Geometrical shape, curves, and more edgy or sharp, or in multicolor or single color, so taupe and orange. The pattern become more rounded. But we also have lines combined with colors or combined in a fuzzy way. You will see a lot also on the floor downstairs. That reminds us of the pattern of the 70s. And lines very rigorous, very elegant. Oops. That recalls us a Japanese essentiality. And beyond two-dimensionality. So tiles are no longer the ones we remember of years ago. Tiles become also a piece of furnishing. Big slabs can be cut to shape. In this case, we see there is a table that is being cut with a round shape, but that combines perfectly. It's coping with the rest of the environment on the floor, on the backsplash. And can create also sinks like this in a rectangular shape, but also can cover rounded shape. And if you have a look on the backs on the top and backsplash of the image on the right, so there is a technology that is called all over. If you cut this kind of ceramic slab, you will find the same pattern also inside. So it's not something that is just printed on top, but you can find the same veining also inside. And of course in the thickness of. And talking about thickness, that helps in installation outdoor to create paths, patios, or even external part of villas, the ancient one or the contemporary one, internal or external stairs and swimming pool. The most complex ventilated facade, like this one. And thanks to the ultra thick, we were talking before about 3.5 millimeters. This is more than 2 centimeters, even more. We can also use these tiles in urban landscape. So in places where you can walk, you can drive through, and at any weather condition and temperature. So we are ready to tile the world. Thank you.
That was awesome.
And now to wrap up our final trends overview, Ryan Fasan.
Yeah, so this is at the same time my favorite presentation and one of the most daunting because I have such a talented group of panelists and I always wind up speaking last. And it's awesome to have the kind of anchor spot, but it's also very tricky to come up with something that's still interesting after all of these fantastic presentations. So I try to do always a bit of a different take on what trends are. My background is almost 30 years now in this industry, which is crazy to say. I've worked in everything from production and design to installation, and I'm trying to give a bit of a different take, a bit of a broader scope. I love doing trend research, and when I start on my research, I look at absolutely everything that has nothing to do with the built environment. Because trends are all about intersections. It's all about how things we're exposed to in different areas of our life find a way to permeate and become our interests in parallel areas. And right now, tile, what's happening in technology and what's happening in this crazy world we're all experiencing together is really sort of coming together to create some really interesting intersections that are creating an evolution of our trends. So this is a picture that I've used quite a bit when I'm talking about trends, because when we're trying to design something, we're trying to create a solution. What we're able to do in that solution depends on the technology we have available. That's kind of going to be the through line of what I'm talking about today. In this case, we're trying to light a room. And as technology progresses, the temperature of the light, the quality of the light, the spread of the light gets better and better and more encompassing and more enveloping. And that's where we're at today in ceramics. I'm going to show you a little bit about the technology that we're doing. But most importantly, our focus is changing as a global culture. And as designers, whether we're building spaces or we're building tile to go into those spaces, we're actually developing things with a kind of end goal of symbiosis rather than domination. We're not looking necessarily to take over something. We're looking to work in concert and harmony, as all of the trends we've been talking about are showing. Obviously, we've all talked about sustainability, and the end goal there is really taking the connotation of humanity's footprint on the earth that up until now is almost always seen as a net negative, and changing that even in a business setting that we are obviously trying to make money, but we're trying to do it in a benevolent way. We're trying to create products that promote the health and wellness of the occupants of the spaces we're creating, and changing sort of the connotation of how we do business. One of the things I always talk about, and now's a really good time to talk about it, is that crisis really breeds the biggest opportunities. It's when we see paradigm shifts in capabilities, in understanding. We never know what we're capable of until our backs are up against a wall. And right now, there's all kinds of levers shifting us with our backs against the wall. There's all kinds of things that are affecting this industry, our built environment, and the entire planet. And so I find this to be an extremely exciting time for ceramics, technology is shifting in a way that it truly is becoming a very exciting time for ceramics to kind of lead the way and create opportunities for us to reconceptualize how we design and how we sort of demand our buildings be created and function. So now I want to get into some of those technologies that are allowing us to reimagine how we're creating our spaces and sort of working within those intersections that we're seeing in trends. New technologies that are kind of, we've all talked about today. One of them is in digital decoration within the surface of our tile. Cristina already talked about digital decoration throughout the body, and that's another one that's really just developed over the last year or so. But the tandem of those two, where we're taking the color spectrum on the left of that slide, and as our technology gets better and better, we're adding volume, we're adding reflectivity, and being able to modulate that in a digital way is giving us all of the characteristics that we're seeing in those previous images. This slide really tells us the reason why that's so important. I'm going to go back there for a second. If we look at that scene, all of us would look at that water and we'd say, okay, it's blue water. We've got sandy sort of earth tone in the beach. We've got green in the grass. But in reality, true tone, when we look at all of those images, even though we read blue, we read sand, we read green, as you drill down deeper into those, there's little variations in reflectivity and how the light bounces off of those surfaces. And what we're seeing in those blues, greens, and sandy tones is actually this myriad of multiple hues. And that's what truly becomes an engrossing and enveloping and believable experience for us as people. And that's where we're getting to in ceramics. Someone that works in the technical side of the industry knows that 2 to 3 years ago, we couldn't do a slab like this. We couldn't get those rich, vibrant ochres, those deep, rusty, true tone reds, and put all of that into a slab that when you get close to it has the luminance and the depth of the natural material. And that's where we're getting to in our technological capabilities today. This is another thing that just came out this year, actually at the fair in Spain in February. They got the Alfa de Oro this year because it's the first time in a production setting we've been able to digitally apply not just ink, but glaze. So we can take the lovely characteristics of glaze, the frit, the reflectivity, and the deep saturation of tones that comes with marrying those oxides with glaze and deliver them digitally so that we can, in this case, it's a very simple application of using a scored biscuit. So on the bottom there, that's the biscuit of the tile. We've got matte tile in a terracotta interspersed with a glazed ceramic. That's all in one body. It's very cheap and easy to install because once it's grouted, it looks like a completely unique installation. The capabilities for digitally applying glaze on top of being able to apply ink as well is going to completely change what we can do just up to next year. Cristina showcased a couple. There's only a few companies that are doing this now that's marrying digital technology in body stains and surface inks and creating a through body slab experience so that we can fabricate it just like a natural stone that has all the performance characteristics of tile, but it has the capability of being able to cut and not have to miter an edge and graft an edge on because that surface, that veining, and all of that structure goes all the way through the material. We talked about sort of quiet luxury and the ability to create nuanced lighting schemes, and this is something where tile, because of its inert nature and non-conductive nature as well, any kind of electrical systems working within tile is something that's a huge area to add alternative lighting sources, multi-hued lighting sources, and using LED strips either in our profiles, our edge profile systems, or within the body of an extruded tile as well, is another way that we're creating these enveloping and engrossing spaces. So I hope sort of the change in technology is starting to create a paradigm shift, because if you're looking at tile as only for functional areas when you can't, or your client can't afford the real thing, you're really going about it the wrong way. because what we can do today is create one of the most enveloping experiences there are. So now I'm going to just rapid fire go through a few of the aesthetic trends that we've seen through a lot of our presentation before, but what's most important here is layered tones with a mid-tone sort of aesthetic that's shifting away from whites and grays and to a more modulated kind of flesh tones from all the shades of the bright peaches all the way to the deepest browns. When we're looking at color, this is something that a lot of us don't think about. Color's really completely subjective. It's a story that we tell ourselves. And a lot of that story up until now has been, that thing is blue. But as I showed you in the picture of that beach, even though that thing is blue, there's all kinds of things that are going on within that. Because all color is how light refracts and what caliber and temperature of light refracts from a surface. So we're pushing contrast further now to get to the most believable and realistic and engrossing experiences we can in color, thanks to all the technology that we have. Accents are favoring the natural tones of earth and sea, greens and blues to favor those warm, inviting, enveloping earth and skin tones. So I just go through this really, really briefly. If you look at color is actually a three-dimensional space, and it's all about reflectivity of that surface. It's what colors reflect from that surface and what don't. That's how our eye reads it, and it's how we tell our story. When it comes to what we can print in terms of actual color, that's the narrowest version of three-dimensional color space. CMYK there is the smallest subset of actual color space. As soon as we get into variance and reflectivity and light and shadow, gives us broader and broader expanses of color, and that's why being able to print in structure and in reflectivity increases our color palette exponentially. We had a Pantone session just before us, and a lot of people, like the stone fruit colors of trends this year, I think, have been really well received by some and really not well received by others. For me, as a tile nerd, I didn't see an accent color here. What I saw was terracottas and earth tones and a natural field color as opposed to an accent color. And then when you look at the primary and secondary complements, that's where tile really lives, is we live in all the complementary tones that are going to make those natural tones really shine. And that's what we see. Here's another thing that I do a lot of times when I'm talking about color, and this is kind of showing us why we're shifting away from whites and blacks and creating high contrast in more natural shades. What color is that wolf? White? Everyone says white. It's a white wolf, but if you actually took a color dropper in Photoshop, you would see almost no white in that. It's in the point of reflection on that wolf's nose. It's in the highest contrast right on the top of his head. Everything else in there is not white. And the same is true for a lot of our marbles, a lot of our metals, a lot of the colors that we're making today. We're using white strategically to push our variance, to push our value to a higher contrast, but it's very, very tight points. White and black are used much, much less frequently now because in nature, we don't see those except at the highest points of reflection. So we're pushing our value variance from our lowest deep tones to our highest brights, much, much broader to give a much more enveloping and believable experience. But the tones that we're using in a majority are these baseline neutrals. And this is kind of the new neutral. It's a layered tone with multi-hued, warm naturals that make those beautiful organic accents, like in this case, vegetation. And that's one of the reasons why we're seeing this shift from stark whites and grays to a much more earthy, natural palette of flesh tones. Because it really sets off vegetation. We're spilling our exteriors into, interiors into our exteriors. Even if it's just an interior space, there's a lot more houseplants that are going in and becoming an actual design feature rather than something that you add afterwards. So we're having to create a lot more of these intersections in this palette. So I'm just going to rapid fire through these because we've seen a lot of this. But really what we're seeing is this tension and this harmony between naturalism and humanism, how we as people interact with the world around us, and the schemes that we're developing in tile are really creating that, interspersing metal with these naturalistic tones and humanistic tones, and then creating all of that within an envelope of functionality. So we're taking inspiration from nature. I told you that's why we're kind of shifting to these natural tones, pushing our variance higher and higher so that it is a believable natural material, and using reflection as variance, because we can print an area where we can add more gloss or take away gloss from an overall surface, creating a more variegated surface. That reflectivity is giving us more contrast without adding different colors to the space as well. Another thing that we were talking about, that in product development, it used to be that if you saw an overtone of green or pink or, God forbid, purple in a gray or a neutral color, that was something that was really the kiss of death for a product. And now we're looking and pushing these colored filters. We're getting greens and purples and all sorts of hues that are pushing and being an overall filter that's creating harmony for all the various elements that we're putting into our spaces. This is another, I talked about this already in the new neutral, that just creating a biophilic residence rather than printing. We're seeing still a lot of anthropomorphic shapes and vegetation printed, but more importantly, what we're seeing is a lot of the tones that are creating space and harmony for real vegetation to be entered into a space. Value variance, as I talked about, is sometimes in texture, sometimes in gloss, and when it's the most effective, it's color, gloss, and texture all working in harmony and pushing that value variance to a greater degree. When I talk about humanism, it's respecting the shape of the human body, softer forms. That's why we're seeing a lot of rounded corners. That's why Apple actually turned to rounded corners in a lot of their devices, because it sort of made it more comfortable for us to interact with. We're seeing a lot of that even in our most strict vertical line series. That's sort of respecting us as people, rounding off those curves, creating, this is an intersection of all kinds of the trends that we're talking about. Very simple use of extrusion technology to create a really modern piece that's highly functional and respective of the world. Even in our highest tech stuff, we're looking for ideas of human touch, artisanal craftsmanship that's giving a feeling of human interaction with that product. We're seeing flesh tones in everything from terracotta, just edges of tile where the glaze has been worn away. This is a brand new tile that looks like it's been there for 2 centuries and worn away with no engobe. Or in the accents that are moving around this beautifully neutral space. Another thing we talked about is not just functionality for multi-generational use of a space, but actually aesthetic connotations of multiple different design eras moving together within a space. So that kind of refined maximalism that Roxanne touched on. The last thing is metal interacting with all of these organic tones. One thing that I'm seeing a lot in ceramics is non-metallic metal. It's something that is done a lot in art, in painting, where we're using the tones of metal and reflectivity to give the appearance of metal. That's just increasing that value, increasing that contrast using the connotations of metal. Another thing that, it used to be the biggest faux pas, like wearing black shoes with a brown belt, seeing brass mixed with a silver and mixed with a black in metals throughout a space. Often we wanted harmony, and everything would be one metal for all of our fixtures and our hardware. We're seeing a lot of mixed metals because of the tonal variance that we're seeing in a lot of our interiors. Mixing media in materials and then mixing metals as well to create one of those more enveloped spaces. Again, pushing patinaed or oxidized metals. We talked about verdigris that builds in those organic tones as well, and creating these sort of weathered in space and using texture as contrast. This is a completely flat tile using metallic inks, non-metallic inks, and then a slight structure as well. So to create the illusion of a flowing drape as opposed to the actuality of it. So this is something that's really easy to clean. It's easy to design around in a space, but gives the appearance of movement and flow. And all of this happens, it could be a cacophony, but because of the way things are intersecting and the technology that we have at our disposal, all of this kind of seemingly cacophonous events is creating some of the most harmonious spaces, both for our eye and for ourselves as we move and utilize the space. I love seeing elegance and luxury shift from something that's really austere and almost standoffish to something that's really approachable and warm and has a story of someone's lifestyle and utilizes a lot of artisanship. The last thought I want to leave you with, if you're a designer, if you're a distributor, if you're a manufacturer, it's never been more important to do a lot more video or oblique angle and macro imagery than it is today. Because if you look at a face-on picture of any tile, it's impossible to tell how much story is going on in there. That's why shows like this are so important, but it's something that marketing divisions really need to get on board with, because the capabilities of tile versus almost anything else are so rich and engrossing, but you can't tell that from a single face-on picture. So the authenticity that we're able to create as a story, we really need to be able to tell better. And with that, I think I am done for the day as well. So I hope you've all enjoyed.
Thank you. I just want to say, Ryan, Cristina, Roxanne, that was a phenomenal overview on current trends in ceramic tiles. So much great perspective, beautiful imagery, so much inspiration, and I hope that everyone is inspired to see it all on the show floor. And I want to open up for questions. We do have a mic runner, so if you have questions for our amazing panelists here, please raise your hand and we'll get someone to you with the mic. Any questions? They were also amazingly thorough, so I feel like it was so much great material. But if you do have one, just raise your hand. We're good. No. Well, I do want to say thank you again to our panelists. Thank you all for joining us. And before you go, there are some great trends tours that Coverings is having throughout the show, and you could find all of this on the mobile app with details on other educational sessions, as well as the tours. And the tours will focus on sustainability, health and wellness, luxury, and of course, outdoor spaces. So a lot of what we've talked about here, great in-depth tours as well. And so I just want to thank you all. Happy Earth Day. Enjoy the first day of Coverings. And another round of our applause for our amazing panelists.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.